And if that was indeed Bill Belichick posing as guy holding orange stick behind Mike Vrabel yesterday in Nashville, Belichick missed witnessing on TV the disintegration of the Buffalo Bills. Just a couple of weeks after they only scored 6 points against the Jaguars in Jacksonville, the Bills came home to face a Colts team that they had a rough time with in the playoffs last year, a 27-24 victory then. This time, and that 7.5-point spread was too wide. I thought the Colts would cover. I didn't think they would win. Oh, indeed they won. Let's hear before we get into the accomplishments of the Colts and maybe Jonathan Taylor as an MVP candidate. Josh Allen, a guy we thought was an MVP favorite going into the season and was the betting favorite going into this week. Here he is talking about how the Bills' offense struggled yet again.
We know who we are. And that we put out there on that field, that's not who we are.
So that's 2 losses in 3 games, I guess 3 and 5 since Kansas City. Can you diagnose like a lot of what the issues are offensively?
Again, I mean, just protecting the football. Execution is what it comes down to, and we're not executing at a high enough level right now. So, it starts with me.
It is jarring to look at the standings and see Buffalo 6-4, a half game behind New England at 7-4. But that's where they are right now, and they were dominant early in the season, Mike. They were the only dominant team the first 4 or 5 weeks, but they lost it, and they just can't get it back now. And if you're only going to run the ball 8 times for an entire game, you get what you deserve. I heard somebody recently suggest that Brian Daboll is doing his head coaching audition thing, and he's trying to get a little too fancy on offense, and maybe that's one of the reasons why the Bills are so skewed toward the pass, and maybe that's one of the reasons why they're not performing. But whatever it is, they better figure it out, because they got the Patriots coming 2 weeks from tonight, and the way they played yesterday, they're not going to beat anybody, much less the Patriots.
Well, I mean, listen, we've seen this before with them, right? I mean, from an offensive standpoint, not being able to put up points. A game against Jacksonville and earlier in the season as well, where you scratch your head a little bit. They just don't have a good enough running game. I mean, so yesterday it was, 13 runs and 40 passes. Now, again, this one was a bit different because the game got away from them. It's 24-7 at half. Before you know it, it's 38. I believe it's 38-7. So your game plan does kind of go out the window. But I even went back the week they played Jacksonville, and we were having this discussion where the run-to-pass ratio was ridiculous for a game that was 9-6. So I think they put too much on Josh Allen to throw the ball. And he throws the ball well. He's improved incredibly well had been talked about as an MVP candidate. But I just don't think there's enough balance to that offense at all. You look at a team like the Eagles, all of a sudden they found forget balance. Now they're more of a running team the last couple of weeks, and it's worked out well for them where they had basically not done it a lot during the season. And you were like, why aren't you doing this? So Buffalo, it's a combination in this last game of being down too much and having to throw yourself back into the game. But also, I don't think there's a lot of confidence in that running game either. And that's going to bite you coming later in the season. If you're going to get to the playoffs, you're going to play in cold weather places where you need to have an efficient, it doesn't have to be great, but at least an efficient running game. And there are times when Buffalo just says, the hell with it. We're not even going to run the ball. We're just going to throw the ball all over the park.
I think there's something to be said, too, for the temptation for a team that had a special season, that fell short, that has a high degree of urgency to get back to where it was and finish the job. I think sometimes they may lose sight of the week in and week out grind. And sometimes they just assume that thing that worked so well last year is just automatically going to work well again this year. And when it doesn't, you see a resistance to pivot away from it. Like, this should be working. Like, you're trying to start a car that doesn't want to start. At a certain point, you just got to stop and check under the hood. You quit twisting the key. I feel like that's what the Bills' offense is. They get into these moments where they're twisting the key and it's going, and they keep doing it. They flood the engine. Remember that when I still don't know what it means to flood the engine. You're going to flood the engine. They've flooded the engine in Buffalo.
Yeah, kids don't know about today. You start to smell that gas a little bit, and you're like, oh, no, I flooded the engine. Now I got to sit and wait for a while. But, I mean, the NFL is one of the great, adjusting leagues. You get figured out. Other teams don't stay stagnant. They don't just say, wow, that's a really good team. Boy, I hope someday we could beat them. No, you work to what they do good, and you try and counter that. I mean, I go all the way back to Buddy Ryan's 46 defense. He ran in Chicago, and we ran in Philly, and we were successful with it. But eventually, offenses learn where the spots are to either run and or pass against it. That happens. It happens to everybody. It's not like it's a shot against you. That's the NFL. That's what coaches do. They figure things out. They watch film. They see tendencies, and they say, okay, they do this really well. This is what we're going to try and do to stop it. And if you're on the other side and just keep banging your head into the wall, or, like you said, slamming your foot on the gas pedal waiting for it to start, you're not going to get anywhere. You do have to adjust some. Rarely do you get a team that's that good that could just say, well, this is the way we do it. We're not going to change the way we do it, and we plan on keep beating you this way, the way we do it. And that's more the exception than the rule in the NFL.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You have to be flexible. You have to have a game plan week in and week out, offensively and defensively, based upon the team that you are playing. The talent gap is not so great that you can just say, we're going to do what we always do, and they're not going to be able to stop us, either side of the ball. You have to adjust and adapt and play that chess game of we zig when they zag. We make them think we're going to do this. We do that instead. We exploit this weakness they have, and we try to enhance this strength we have or disguise this strength we have or use it at the right time. Use it selectively, not all the time, especially when it's not working. Now, sometimes there's a strength you can use all the time because it is working, and that's what the Colts have with Jonathan Taylor. This team was left for dead a few weeks ago. They were done. Got swept by the Titans, down 3, got to make up 4 games in the final 9. Ain't going to happen. Forget about it. Maybe you'll get a wild card if you get lucky. Well, now here they are at 6-5. And Jonathan Taylor, definitely an MVP candidate, Mike. 185 rushing yards yesterday, 5 total touchdowns. Unbelievable performance by a guy who just keeps getting better and better. First guy to get over 1,000 yards this season rushing. And, as I think Coach Dungy pointed out last night, for a dome team, or maybe it was Tirico, for a dome team to be playing with this formula that is perfect for outdoors football in the winter, it's amazing, but that's exactly where the Colts are right now.
Listen, I love what the Colts are doing right now. Carson Wentz we just talked about Tannehill's 4 interceptions. You got Wentz not turning the ball over, 18 touchdowns and just 3 interceptions on the year. And then what Taylor is doing, I remember watching and covering him when he was running at Wisconsin behind, those hog molly offensive linemen. And now he gets a nice line to run behind here, though Quentin Nelson did go down again. He had that brace on his ankle from the high ankle sprain, and he got that ankle again. So we're going to have to see how long he's going to be out. He is without question their best lineman, close to their best player on that team. So that could hurt him. But take nothing away from the way Taylor runs. You need a good line in front of you, obviously, but his ability to show patience at times, hit that burst at times. He's catching the ball out of the backfield as well. What a weapon. It was him and Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry had the lead, obviously, in rushing, and he's out, and Taylor taking over. But 8 consecutive games, over 100 scrimmage yards and a touchdown. I mean, it's ridiculous. Boy, if you got him on your fantasy team, kudos to you. Never sit that guy again. I mean, it's incredible what he's doing. And again, that balances a defense. It balances an offense that doesn't turn the ball over. Again, we'll see for a dome team as it gets out, if you have to get outside in the cold weather. But what did I just say earlier? You need that running game, and they have a running game right now with a hell of a running back.
And one thing that the Colts did that could potentially benefit them significantly, Marlon Mack wanted out before the trade deadline. They didn't trade him. Now he's not active far more often than not. And what does that provide for the Colts? The ultimate insurance policy in the event that this guy who had 32 rushing attempts yesterday gets injured at some point. Now you can pivot to another guy who can do very similar things and who had done very similar things. And it wasn't that long ago that Jim Irsay, the owner of the team, was touting Marlon Mack as an 1,800-yard guy. Here we go, if we need to. And Mack's not happy about it for now, but he's going to love it if he ends up having to play at some point between now and who knows how far they go. But they're going to go farther than they would if they didn't have a good backup ready to go in the event something happens to Taylor. They don't have all their eggs in that one basket.
Well, we talk about quality depth. We just talked about it with Dallas, right? Your two number one receivers are out. And, where's the production from the backups there? It was your tight end and your running back who led the way. So you're right. If you can have another guy, we're saying this, it's part of the NFL. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor is healthy and running well right now, but injuries happen. And you're right. If he somehow went out and you could plug in another guy like that who has been playing well when we've seen him play well before injuries, and he'll be somewhere else probably at some point as well, unless he ends up on the field here a lot by bad circumstances to Taylor. But you're right. If you can plug in a guy, especially coming to the end of the season and not miss much of a beat, that's only going to help you. That's where I talk about quality depth. It's hard to find sometimes.
I hesitate to talk about possible quarterback injuries because the rules are set up for them to not get hit, and it feels like a jinx. But with running backs, there's an inevitability to it. It's the nature of the position that you play. You are getting the ball, and you are sprinting into the teeth of 7 guys who are large, and they are strong, and something's got to give at some point. So we've seen it over and over and over again with running backs. Even if it's just a short-term, week or two thing. They've got Marlon Mack, who was indeed inactive again yesterday. So he's healthy. He's 100%. He's ready to go if they need him. It's just something that the Colts can feel good about because just like with the Titans, all you got is Derrick Henry. Hey, this is great as long as he's healthy. And then once he's gone, you're really struggling. The Colts won't be in that predicament if that does indeed happen.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.